The nurse held out the clipboard with a gentle smile. "Just a signature, Mr. Caldwell." Ethan stared at the line where his name was supposed to go, the ink hovering above paper that suddenly felt heavier than anything he had ever carried. Behind him, Amelia cradled the newborn, her voice soft, almost trembling. "Ethan, what are you doing?" He didn't look at her. Instead, he asked the one question that would destroy everything. "Whose child is this, Amelia?" San Francisco never really slept, it just dimmed its lights enough to pretend. From the glass walls of their penthouse overlooking the bay, Ethan Caldwell could see the city breathing in slow pulses of neon and fog. It was a view that had impressed every guest, every client, every follower Amelia had ever brought into their orbit. "Stand closer to me," Amelia said, adjusting her phone on the tripod. "The lighting's better this way." Ethan complied, slipping an arm around her waist. She leaned into him, her smile flawless, her hand resting gently on her visibly pregnant belly. "Okay," she whispered. 3, 2, click. Another perfect moment captured for 312,000 followers. Amelia immediately stepped away, already reviewing the image. "Oh, this is good. This is really good," she murmured. "People are going to love this." Ethan watched her, something quiet settling in his chest, not quite suspicion, not yet. Just distance. "You didn't even look at me," he said lightly. "I did," she replied, distracted. "You look great. That's not what I meant." She sighed, finally glancing up. "Ethan, please don't start tonight. I have a brand deal going live in an hour." There it was, the invisible wall between them, not new, just sharper lately. Later that night, Ethan stood alone in the kitchen, nursing a glass of bourbon he hadn't planned to pour. Amelia's laughter echoed faintly from the bedroom. She was on a call, probably with her manager or one of her collaborators. That had become her world, now curated intimacy, monetized authenticity. He told himself it was normal. People changed, marriages evolved. But something about the way she had started locking her devices, the way she angled her screen away, the sudden bursts of late-night content planning, it didn't fit. "Hey," Amelia said, entering the kitchen, her tone softer now. "You okay?" Ethan turned, offering a small smile. "Yeah, just thinking." She walked over, placing his hand on her belly. The baby shifted slightly beneath his palm. "You're going to be an amazing dad," she said. He searched her face, looking for something real, something unfiltered. "Are you happy?" he asked. The question caught her off guard. "Of course I am," she replied quickly. "Why wouldn't I be?" "I don't know," he said. "You just feel somewhere else lately." For a moment, just a flicker, something crossed her eyes. Guilt. Fear. Then it was gone. "You're overthinking," she said, pulling away gently. "It's just hormones. Stress. Everything's changing." Ethan nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. "Everything's changing." 2 days later, the illusion cracked. It wasn't dramatic. No lipstick stains, no mysterious phone calls, just an old iPad. Amelia had asked him to find a charger for it. She needed to pull some archived photos for a campaign. The device powered on, slowly untouched, for months. And then, the notifications. Messages. Dozens of them. From a name Ethan recognized. Lucas Bennett. At first, he didn't think anything of it. Lucas was a photographer. They had worked together before. Until he opened one. "I can still taste you." Ethan's hand froze. Another message. What if it's mine? The room seemed to tilt. He kept reading. He shouldn't have, but he did. Dates, photos, explicit, undeniable. And then the one that hollowed him out completely. "If you're pregnant, we need to figure this out before Ethan finds out." Ethan sat there for a long time. No shouting, no broken glass, just silence, thick, suffocating, irreversible. That night, Amelia slept beside him, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. Ethan lay awake staring at the ceiling. Every memory rewrote itself in real time. Every smile, every touch, every "I love you." Contaminated. He turned his head slightly, looking at her. "Who are you?" he whispered too quietly for her to hear. But somewhere deep down, he already knew the woman he loved might never have existed at all. The iPad felt heavier the longer Ethan held it. Not physically, that would have been easier to explain. This weight was something else. It settled into his chest, his throat behind his eyes. A pressure that made breathing feel optional. He didn't move for a long time. The city outside still shimmered. Cars passed. Someone laughed in the hallway. Life continued with offensive normalcy, but inside that kitchen, everything had already ended. Ethan read the messages again, and again, and again, as if repetition might somehow change the words, rearrange them into something less catastrophic. It didn't. Lucas Bennett. The name now pulsed with a different meaning. Not a collaborator, not a passing acquaintance. A man who had been inside his home, inside his wife, inside his life. He scrolled further back. Weeks turned into months. The tone shifted subtly, the deeper he went from flirtation to familiarity, from suggestion to certainty. He's clueless. Ethan's jaw tightened. Sometimes I feel guilty. A pause. Don't. You deserve to feel alive. His grip on the tablet tightened until his knuckles blanched. Alive. Was that what he had failed to give her? The timestamps began to blur together until one detail snapped everything into sharp, horrifying focus. November 14th. Ethan remembered that night. He had taken Amelia to dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the bay. She had worn a dark green dress, her hair loose, her smile softer than usual. That was the night she told him she wanted a baby. He remembered how her hand had trembled slightly when she placed it over his. "I think we're ready," she had said. He had believed her. God, he had believed her. Ethan swallowed hard and looked back at the screen. November 14th. He tapped the thread, and there it was. Lucas, tonight. Amelia. He has a late meeting. I'll come after. The timestamp 9:42 p.m. Ethan's memory filled in the rest without mercy. His late meeting had ended early. He had come home around 10:30. Amelia had been in the shower. She had said she needed to relax. His stomach turned. He kept scrolling. He didn't want to, but he needed to, because somewhere in this digital graveyard of lies was the answer to the one question that now eclipsed everything else. The baby. Then he found it. A conversation from 3 months ago. The tone was different. Tense. Urgent. Amelia. I'm late. Lucas. How late? Amelia. 5 days. Lucas. Shit. Ethan stopped breathing. Lucas. It could still be his. Amelia. Or yours. Lucas. What are you going to do? There was a long gap before her reply. Minutes. Hours. Then, Amelia. I'm keeping it. Ethan felt something inside him collapse, not violently, not loudly, just quietly, like a building being hollowed out from the inside. He set the iPad down carefully on the counter. Too carefully, as if sudden movement might shatter what little composure he had left. Footsteps approached. Ethan didn't turn around. Did you find the charger? Amelia's voice floated in light, casual, painfully normal. He stared straight ahead. Yeah, he said. His voice sounded unfamiliar. Flat, controlled. Too controlled. She stepped closer, reaching for the device. Ethan moved it slightly, just enough. Not enough to be obvious, but enough. Her hand paused mid-air, a flicker. There it was again, that same flicker he had seen before. Only now he knew exactly what it meant. Why are you acting weird? She asked. her tone shifting almost imperceptibly. Ethan finally turned to look at her. Really look. He took in every detail, the curve of her face, the softness in her eyes, the woman he had built an entire life around. And for the first time, he saw a stranger. "When were you going to tell me?" he asked. No anger, no accusation, just a question, direct, precise, impossible to misinterpret. Amelia blinked. What Ethan held her gaze. About Lucas. Silence. It didn't stretch. It snapped. Her face drained of color so quickly it was almost clinical. "I don't know what you—" "Don't." One word. Sharp. Final. It cut through whatever lie she had been about to construct. Ethan reached for the iPad, tapped the screen and turned it toward her. He didn't need to point. He didn't need to explain. The truth was already there, laid bare in black and white. Amelia didn't touch it. Didn't even look at it at first. Her eyes stayed on Ethan, searching, calculating, unraveling. "How long have you known?" she asked quietly. Ethan let out a slow breath. Long enough. A lie, but a necessary one. She looked away, then finally glancing at the screen. And Ethan watched the exact moment denial became recognition. Recognition became fear. And fear became something uglier. "It's not what you think," she said. Of course. Of course that's what she would say. Ethan almost laughed, but there was nothing funny left in him. "Then tell me what it is," he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. "I want the truth, Amelia. All of it." She wrapped her arms around herself as if suddenly cold. "It was just a mistake." Ethan tilted his head slightly. "A mistake that lasted months." She flinched. "It didn't mean anything," she insisted. Another script, another line. Ethan stepped closer. Not aggressive, not threatening, just inevitable. "Did you sleep with him?" he asked. No hesitation, no escape. Amelia's silence was the answer. Ethan nodded once, slowly, processing, organizing, rebuilding himself in real time. "And the baby?" he asked. That was the moment everything truly broke. Amelia's eyes filled with something that wasn't quite tears. Fear. Guilt. Cornered truth. "I don't know," she whispered. There it was. No denial, no deflection. Just the worst possible answer. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Not to escape, but to contain the explosion inside him. When he opened them again, something had changed. Not rage, not grief. Something colder, sharper. "Then we're going to find out?" he said. Amelia shook her head quickly. "No, Ethan, we don't have to." "Yes," he cut in. "We do." For the first time since he had known her. Amelia Caldwell looked afraid of him. And Ethan realized something in that moment. Something that would shape everything that came next. He wasn't the one losing control. She was. That night they slept in the same bed. Miles apart. Ethan didn't touch her, didn't speak, didn't react. Because the man who had discovered the truth in that kitchen was not the same man who had walked into it. And Amelia just hadn't realized it yet. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and false reassurance. Everything about it was designed to calm people down. The soft lighting, the pastel walls, the gentle voices of nurses trained to deliver life and soften pain. But for Ethan Caldwell, standing just outside the delivery room, none of it worked. Because nothing in this place could sanitize betrayal. Amelia's scream tore through the hallway. Raw, primal, real. Ethan flinched, not because of the pain in her voice, but because of the memory attached to it. Once that sound would have triggered instinct, concern, love. Now it triggered something else. Distance. "She's crowning," a nurse said as she rushed past him. Ethan nodded mechanically. He stepped inside. Amelia lay on the bed, drenched in sweat, her hair clinging to her face. She looked smaller somehow, stripped of the curated perfection she showed the world. For a brief second, she looked human again. Her eyes found him immediately. "Ethan," she gasped. "Where were you?" He didn't answer right away. He walked closer, stopping just within reach. "I'm here," he said. The words were technically true. Hours blurred into moments. Push, breathe, scream, repeat. Ethan stayed, silent, observing. Every contraction, every cry, he watched it like someone witnessing a storm from behind glass, close enough to see the destruction, too far to feel it. And then a cry. Not Amelia's, higher, fragile, new. "It's a girl," the doctor announced. The room shifted instantly. Relief, joy, applause. A life had entered the world. The nurse wrapped the baby and placed her gently against Amelia's chest. Amelia broke. Tears streamed down her face as she cradled the child. "She's perfect," she whispered. Ethan stood there, looking, not feeling. The baby's tiny hand curled instinctively. Her eyes fluttered unfocused, unaware of the war she had been born into. "Dad," the nurse said softly, turning to him. "Do you want to hold her?" The word echoed. "Dad." Ethan stepped forward slowly. He looked down at the child, searched her face for something, anything, a resemblance, a connection, a truth. But all he saw was uncertainty. He didn't reach out, Amelia noticed. "Ethan," her voice trembled. "What are you doing?" The room grew quieter. Not silent machines still beeped, nurses still moved, but the emotional temperature shifted. Something was wrong. Everyone could feel it. A nurse approached with a clipboard. "Routine, efficient, whenever you're ready." "Mr. Caldwell," she said gently, "we just need your signature for the birth certificate." Ethan looked at the paper, then at the pen, then at the name already printed there. Father Ethan Caldwell. His chest tightened, not with doubt, with clarity. Behind him, Amelia's voice softened. "Ethan, just sign it. We can talk later." He didn't move. "Ethan," she said again, more urgent now. "Please." Slowly, deliberately, he set the pen down. "I'm not signing that." The words didn't explode. They landed. Heavy, final, irreversible. The nurse blinked, confused. "I'm sorry." Amelia froze. "What did you just say?" Ethan turned to face her fully. No hesitation, no shield. "I said," he repeated, his voice calm but unyielding, "I'm not signing the birth certificate." The air left the room. "Ethan, stop," Amelia whispered sharply. "This isn't the time." "When's the time, Amelia?" He cut in. Still calm, still controlled, "Because I asked you for the truth, and you gave me uncertainty." Her face paled. "Not here," she hissed. "Please, not here." "Then where?" he asked. A step closer. "Because that child," he gestured, not looking at the baby, "might not be mine." A nurse gasped softly. Another quickly looked away. Professionalism cracked just enough to let reality in. Amelia's eyes filled with panic. "You're insane," she said quickly. "You're actually insane if you think that—" "Don't." That word again. Sharp enough to cut through her denial. Ethan's gaze locked onto hers. "I'm going to ask you one more time," he said. "No anger, just precision. Do you know for a fact that this is my child?" Silence. Amelia's lips parted, closed. Her eyes flickered, searching for an answer that didn't exist. "That's what I thought," Ethan said quietly. "Ethan, you're humiliating me," she whispered, tears spilling now. "In front of everyone?" "No," he said. "You did that yourself." The baby stirred, a soft cry, ignored. The nurse holding the clipboard shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, we can come back later if you need time." "No," Ethan said. Then, softer. "There's nothing to come back to." He turned back to Amelia, and for the first time since the truth had surfaced, there was something in his eyes. Not rage, not grief. Something colder. "I will not legally claim a child whose paternity is in question," he said. Each word deliberate, measured, final. "We do a DNA test, then we talk." Amelia shook her head desperately. "No, we don't need that. I'm telling you, I don't trust you." The sentence landed harder than anything else. Amelia flinched as if struck. Ethan stepped back. "Distance, control. Get the test," he said. "Until then, He glanced once at the paper, then away. I'm not the father. The room fractured. Amelia sobbed openly now, clutching the baby tighter as if holding her closer could rewrite reality. "You're destroying us," she cried. Ethan paused at the door, his hand resting lightly on the handle. "No," he said without turning back. "You already did that." And then he walked out. The hallway felt colder, cleaner, easier to breathe. Behind him, a newborn cried. A woman broke. A life collapsed. And Ethan Caldwell, and for the first time since discovering the truth, felt something dangerously close to control. The story didn't belong to Ethan anymore. It never really had. 3 days after the hospital, the world decided what had happened without ever asking him. Amelia made sure of that. It started with a single post. A photo. Soft lighting, pale skin, tear-streaked cheeks. The newborn sleeping peacefully against her chest. The caption was longer than usual. Carefully written, strategically vulnerable. I never imagined I would have to bring my daughter into the world alone. Some people walk away when things get hard, but I will always choose love. For her. No names, no accusations, but the implication was surgical. Within an hour, the post exploded. Hundreds of comments turned into thousands, then tens of thousands. "Stay strong, Mama. He doesn't deserve you. Men are trash. You'll be better off without him." Ethan watched it all unfold from the silence of his office. Not the penthouse. He hadn't gone back there. Instead, he sat in a glass-walled conference room on the 27th floor of his firm's building in downtown San Francisco. His phone face up on the table like evidence in a trial he hadn't agreed to participate in. Another notification. Another repost. Another version of him being rewritten. His colleague, Daniel Reeves, leaned against the doorframe. "I'm guessing you've seen it." Ethan didn't look up. "I've seen enough." Daniel stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "She didn't say your name," he said carefully. She didn't have to. A pause. "You want me to handle this?" Daniel asked. "PR, legal, whatever you need." Ethan finally picked up the phone. Scrolled. Paused on a comment with over 2,000 likes. "Men who abandon their newborns don't deserve to be called fathers." His jaw tightened slightly, but his voice remained steady. "I didn't abandon anything," Daniel nodded. "I know that. But the internet doesn't care about facts. It cares about narratives." Ethan set the phone down again. And she's very good at those. Across the city, Amelia was building hers in real time. Her stories were subtle. A clip of her rocking the baby at 3 a.m. Caption, "No sleep but worth it," a blurry selfie with red eyes. Caption, "Some days are harder than others." A black screen with text healing isn't linear, especially when you're betrayed at your most vulnerable. Each post was a brushstroke, each caption a calculated move. She never lied outright. She didn't need to. She curated the truth until it became something else entirely, and people believed her. Because she was believable. Because she looked like pain. Because Ethan looked like absence. Back in his office, Ethan opened his laptop. Not to respond, not to defend himself, but to build something far more dangerous. A folder. Simple name. Case file. Inside it, screenshots, messages, dates, timelines. Everything. He moved with precision now. No hesitation, no emotional leakage. If Amelia wanted a narrative, he would build a case. His phone buzzed again. This time a direct message. From her. "Amelia, what are you doing?" Ethan stared at the screen. Typed, deleted. Typed again. "Ethan, fixing what you broke." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Amelia, you're making this worse." Ethan almost smiled. He picked up the iPad again, the same one that had started everything. Scrolled through the messages. Paused at one. "If he ever finds out, I'll lose everything," Ethan whispered under his breath. "You already have." He opened another tab. Searched for a private lab. Discreet, fast, legally admissible. DNA testing. Appointment booked. Time stamped. Documented. Everything documented. Because this wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about truth. And truth, unlike social media, didn't need filters. That night, Ethan returned to the penthouse for the first time since the hospital. Not to reconcile, not to argue, to observe. Amelia was in the living room, the baby asleep beside her in a designer bassinet. Her phone was propped up again, recording. Always recording. She looked up when he entered. Shock flickered across her face. Then something else, relief, hope. "Ethan," she said softly. "You came back." He didn't answer that. His eyes scanned the room. Nothing had changed. And yet everything had. "You need to stop," he said. Her expression hardened slightly. "Stop what?" This he gestured vaguely, but they both knew exactly what he meant. The performance. Her lips parted. "You think this is a performance?" she asked, incredulous. "I'm raising our daughter alone." "Don't," he cut in. The word hit harder this time. "Don't call her that." Silence. Amelia stood slowly. Protective. Defensive. "You're unbelievable," she said. "Do you hear yourself? You're pushing everyone away. You're acting like you're not even the same person." Ethan stepped closer, and for the first time since all of this began, there was a crack in his composure. Not weakness. Intensity. "You're right," he said. "I'm not. A beat. Because the man you married trusted you." Her breath caught. "And that man is gone." Amelia's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they didn't land the same way. Not to Ethan. Not anymore. "You're punishing me," she whispered. Ethan shook his head slowly. "No." He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small card, placed it on the table. A lab address. Appointment details. Date, time. "I'm verifying the truth," he said. Amelia stared at it. Didn't touch it. "We don't need this," she said weakly. Ethan leaned in slightly, close enough for his voice to drop. "I do." And then, after a pause, the final line. "Because if that child isn't mine," his eyes locked onto hers. "Cold." "Everything you're building out there." He nodded toward her phone. Her audience, her narrative is going to collapse. Amelia's mask cracked. Not fully, but enough. For the first time, she wasn't controlling the story. And Ethan, he wasn't reacting anymore. He was waiting. The email arrived at 6:12 a.m. No dramatic music, no warning, just a quiet notification lighting up Ethan's phone in the dim stillness of his temporary apartment. Subject: confidential results available. Ethan was already awake. He hadn't really slept, not since the hospital, not since the question had taken root in his mind and refused to let go. For a moment, he didn't open it. Not out of fear, but because this right here was the last moment where uncertainty still existed, where possibility, however fragile, still lived. Once he opened that file, everything would become irreversible. He exhaled slowly, then tapped the screen. The document loaded, clinical, precise, unemotional. Ethan's eyes scanned the lines, trained by years of legal work to extract meaning quickly. Name: Amelia Caldwell, alleged father. Ethan Caldwell. Child: female newborn. Then result: probability of paternity, 0%. No ambiguity, no margin for interpretation, no room for hope. Ethan stared at the number. 0. It was almost elegant in its cruelty. He didn't flinch, didn't curse, didn't throw the phone across the room. Instead, he nodded once, as if something inside him had just finalized. "Okay," he whispered. That was it. Not grief, not rage. Resolution. Because now the truth wasn't a question anymore. It was a weapon. Across the city in San Francisco, Amelia was just waking up. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. Comments, messages, brand inquiries. Sympathy had turned into momentum. Her follower count had jumped by nearly 50,000 in less than a week. She stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Pale, exhausted, but still beautiful, still believable. "You're doing what you have to do," she murmured to herself. The lie had become a routine, and routines were easier to live with. But there were cracks. She picked up her phone, scrolled past the comments, ignored the praise. opened a different thread. Lucas, we need to talk. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. About what? Her fingers hesitated. The test. A pause. Longer this time. You actually did it. Amelia closed her eyes. Ethan insisted. Another pause. And she didn't answer. Couldn't. Because even without the official result, she already knew. Flashback, it hadn't started with betrayal. Not in the way people imagined. It started with silence. Ethan had always been steady, reliable, predictable. At first, that had felt like safety. Like building a life on solid ground. But over time, it started to feel like something else. Distance. He worked late, came home tired, spoke in half sentences, listened but didn't hear. And Amelia. She had begun disappearing long before Lucas ever appeared. The first time she met Lucas Bennett was on a photo shoot in Napa Valley. Golden light, endless vineyards. A setting designed for illusion. You don't smile with your eyes, Lucas had said casually, adjusting his camera. She blinked. What? You smile, he clarified, snapping a shot. But it doesn't reach here. He pointed gently, not touching just beneath her eye. No one had ever said that to her before. No one had ever noticed, and that was all it took. Not attraction, not lust. Recognition. Back to present, Amelia opened her eyes again. Her reflection didn't look like a victim. It looked like someone cornered by her own choices. Another message came through. Ethan. Her heart stuttered. She opened it. No text, just a file. The PDF. Her fingers trembled as she tapped it open. She didn't need to read all of it. Her eyes went straight to the line that mattered. 0%. Her knees almost gave out. No, she whispered. But it wasn't denial. It was recognition catching up with reality. Flashback. It hadn't been just one time. That was the lie she told herself at first. It was easier that way. Cleaner, more forgivable. But one time became 2. 2 became a pattern. Lucas made her feel seen. Desired. Alive. He asked questions Ethan had stopped asking. He looked at her like she was more than a routine. And when she found out she was pregnant, she didn't stop. She calculated. Dates, timelines, possibilities. And then she made a decision. She would keep the baby. Stay with Ethan. End things with Lucas quietly. Control the damage. Control the story. Back to present, Amelia dropped the phone onto the bathroom counter. Her hands shook uncontrollably now. Everything she had built in the past week, the sympathy, the support, the narrative, was standing on a lie that could no longer hold. Her phone buzzed again. Ethan. We're done pretending. Tears finally came. Real ones. Not curated. Not staged. Because this wasn't about image anymore. This was collapse. Across the city, Ethan closed his laptop. The file now saved. Backed up. Duplicated. Secured. He stood by the window looking out over the skyline. The same city. The same life. But a different man. For a moment, something flickered inside him. A memory. A version of Amelia that had once been real to him. He let it surface, then let it go. Because the truth had stripped everything down to its core. Love, when built on deception, wasn't love. It was leverage. And Ethan Caldwell was done being used. He picked up his phone, dialed his attorney. It's confirmed, he said simply. A pause on the other end. I'm filing today. Ethan ended the call. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Because this wasn't the beginning of the end. It was the end of the illusion. And the beginning of something far more precise. Justice. Silence, when used correctly, was not weakness. It was leverage. Ethan Caldwell stopped responding to the world. No statements, no denials, no emotional outbursts. And that confused people. Because in an age where everyone rushed to defend themselves, where every accusation demanded an immediate reaction, Ethan chose absence. Online. Amelia's narrative continued to grow. Her followers climbed past 400,000. Brands began reaching out again, cautiously at first, then more confidently. Pain sold. And she wore it convincingly. Single motherhood wasn't my plan, but it's my purpose now. Some people leave, others rise. Every word sharpened the image she was crafting. A woman abandoned, a mother betrayed, a survivor. And Ethan, he became the ghost in her story. But ghosts, unlike victims, could observe everything. Inside his law firm in downtown San Francisco, Ethan sat alone in a conference room that had slowly transformed into something else entirely. Not a workspace, a war room. The glass walls were now covered with printed documents, timelines, bank statements, screenshots. Every piece of Amelia's life had been broken down into evidence. Daniel Reeves stepped inside, closing the door quietly behind him. "You've been at this for 12 hours, he said, eyeing the walls. "At some point you need to sleep." Ethan didn't look away from the document in front of him. "I'll sleep when it's done." Daniel crossed his arms. "It's already enough, Ethan. You got the DNA test. You've got the messages. This is a clean case." Ethan finally turned. "Clean isn't enough." A pause. "She's not just lying to me," Ethan continued. "She's lying publicly. She's building a narrative that will affect the outcome of the case." Daniel nodded slowly. "And you want to dismantle that?" "I want to control it," Ethan corrected. "Because this was never just about betrayal anymore. It was about reputation, credibility, power." And Ethan understood something Amelia didn't. In the courtroom, perception mattered, but proof decided. He walked over to the glass wall, tapped a printed screenshot. Amelia's post, time-stamped, archived. Next to it, a corresponding message. "If I lean into the abandoned angle, engagement will spike." Daniel exhaled quietly. "She actually said that." Ethan nodded. 3 days after the hospital, the room fell silent. Because that sentence alone changed everything. "She's not reacting," Ethan said. "She's strategizing." Daniel looked back at the wall at the growing collection of contradictions. "She's not going to expect you to bring all of this into court." Ethan's expression didn't change. "That's the point." Meanwhile, across the city, Amelia was losing control in ways no one else could see. Her posts were still polished, her captions still resonated, but behind the screen, the cracks were spreading. Lucas hadn't replied in 2 days. 2 days of silence that felt louder than any argument. She tried calling. Once, twice, 5 times. No answer. Finally, a message came through. "I can't be involved in this, Amelia." Her chest tightened. "You knew what this was." Her fingers trembled as she typed back. "You said you cared." The reply came slower this time. "I cared about you. Not this situation." Her breath caught. "This situation is your life now." And just like that, Lucas Bennett removed himself from the equation. No confrontation, no accountability, just absence. Amelia stared at the screen. Something cold creeping into her chest. For the first time since this began, she wasn't controlling anything. Back in the conference room, Ethan opened another folder. Financial records, joint accounts, transactions, transfers. There, a series of payments, small at first, then larger, to a name he now knew too well, Lucas Bennett. Daniel leaned in. "Those aren't business payments." "No," Ethan said quietly. "They're not." The implication hung in the air. Amelia hadn't just had an affair. She had funded it. Trips, hotels, gifts, all paid for with money that legally belonged to both of them. Daniel let out a low whistle. "That's bad," Ethan nodded. "Misuse of marital assets," Daniel added. "That's going to matter." "It's all going to matter," Ethan said. Because piece by piece, the story Amelia had built was being rewritten. Not publicly, not yet, but structurally, legally, irrefutably. That night, Ethan sat alone again. The city lights reflecting off the glass like fractured memories. He picked up his phone, scrolled past the noise, the comments, the opinions. None of it mattered, because none of it was real. Truth wasn't loud. It didn't trend. It didn't go viral. It waited. And then it destroyed everything built on lies. Ethan opened a final document. Divorce. Filing. Grounds adultery. Paternity fraud. Financial misconduct. He read it once, then again. No emotion, just certainty. He signed. Not the birth certificate, but something far more final. And somewhere across the city, without knowing exactly when or how, Amelia Caldwell's world had already begun to collapse. She just hadn't seen the full extent of it yet. Ethan leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes for a brief moment, not in exhaustion, but in completion, because the silence was over. And what came next would not be. The courtroom was quieter than expected. No dramatic gasps, no raised voices, just the low hum of air conditioning and the soft shuffle of paper, the sound of lives being dismantled professionally. Amelia Caldwell sat at the petitioner's table dressed in soft ivory. A deliberate choice. Not too bold, not too fragile. Calculated vulnerability. Her hair was pulled back. Minimal makeup, just enough to look exhausted, not enough to look undone. Across from her sat Ethan Caldwell. Dark suit, clean lines, no expression. If Amelia looked like a story, Ethan looked like a verdict waiting to be delivered. In San Francisco, cases like this rarely stayed contained. Not when one party had built a digital audience hungry for narrative. Outside the courtroom, media interest buzzed quietly. Inside, truth was about to replace perception. "Counsel, you may proceed," the judge said. Amelia's attorney stood first. Confident, polished. "Your Honor," she began. "My client is a new mother who has endured emotional abandonment at one of the most vulnerable times in her life." Amelia lowered her gaze on cue. "Perfect. She has been forced to navigate motherhood alone, due to Mr. Caldwell's refusal to accept responsibility." "Objection." Ethan's voice cut through the room. Calm, controlled, mischaracterization. The judge looked up. "Sustained. Counsel stick to verifiable claims." A subtle shift. Small, but important. Amelia's attorney adjusted. "Mr. Caldwell has publicly withdrawn from the marriage and refused to sign the birth certificate of a child born during the union." This time no objection. "Because that part was true." The judge turned slightly. "Mr. Caldwell, you'll have an opportunity to respond." Ethan nodded once. Then it was his turn. He stood slowly. No theatrics, no rush. "Your Honor," he began. "This case is not about abandonment. A beat. It's about deception." Amelia's fingers tightened around each other. Ethan didn't look at her. Not yet. Instead, he turned slightly, gesturing toward the documents already submitted. "I would like to enter Exhibit A into the record." His attorney handed it over. The judge reviewed it briefly, then looked up. "Proceed." Ethan finally turned his gaze toward Amelia. And when he spoke, it wasn't loud, but it was precise. "Do you recognize this conversation?" The screen lit up, projected, unavoidable. A message thread between Amelia and Lucas Bennett. Amelia froze. Her attorney leaned in, whispering urgently. But it didn't matter. The words were already there. "If he ever finds out, I'll lose everything." A ripple moved through the room. "Answer the question," Ethan said. Amelia swallowed. "Yes." No denial. Ethan nodded slightly. Exhibit B. Another document. Bank statements. Highlighted entries. "Do you recognize these transactions?" Amelia hesitated longer this time. "They're personal expenses." Ethan tilted his head slightly. "Transferred to Lucas Bennett." Silence. "Were these marital funds?" he asked. Her voice was smaller now. "Yes." Another shift in the room. The narrative was beginning to crack. But Ethan wasn't done. Exhibit C. This time the DNA report. The one that mattered most. The judge's expression sharpened as she reviewed it. "Mr. Caldwell," she said carefully, "are you asserting?" "I'm stating," Ethan interrupted gently, "that I am not the biological father of the child in question." The words didn't echo. They landed. Amelia's composure fractured. "No." She shook her head quickly. This isn't." "Is the report inaccurate?" Ethan asked. Direct. Unforgiving. She couldn't answer, because she knew. Everyone knew. The judge set the document down slowly. "And you were aware of this possibility prior to birth?" she asked Amelia. Silence. That silence said everything. Ethan stepped forward slightly. And now, he looked at her fully. Not with anger, not with pain, with clarity. "One more thing, Your Honor." He handed over the final document. Printed, time-stamped. Amelia's social media post. Next to it, a message. If I lean into the abandoned angle, engagement will spike. The courtroom stilled. Completely. Amelia's attorney went pale. Where did you, she started. Discovery, Ethan said simply. The judge read the line again, then looked at Amelia. Is this authentic? Amelia's lips parted, closed. There was no version of the truth left that could save her. Yes, she whispered. And just like that, the entire narrative collapsed. Not gradually, all at once. The abandoned mother. The victim. The story she had built, gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. Reality. The ruling didn't come immediately, but the direction was clear. Custody, financial division, reputation. All of it had shifted, irreversibly. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Phones buzzed, posts updated in real time. But Ethan didn't stop, didn't speak, didn't perform, because he didn't need to. The truth had already spoken for him. Behind him, Amelia stood frozen on the courthouse steps. Her phone, once her greatest weapon, now filled with something different. Confusion, backlash, question. Is it true? Was the baby not his? Did you lie? The same audience that had lifted her up was now tearing her apart. Lucas was gone. Her sponsors were silent, her story destroyed by her own words. Ethan reached his car, paused for just a moment, not to look back, but to acknowledge something final. He hadn't won by shouting louder. He had won by waiting longer, and in doing so, he hadn't just exposed the truth. He had taken back control of it. Inside the courthouse, Amelia finally sank into a chair, alone, for the first time, not performing, not curating, not controlling, just facing what she had done, and realizing too late that some consequences couldn't be rewritten. The verdict didn't come with drama. No shouting, no cinematic final blow. Just a measured voice in a quiet courtroom, calm, authoritative, irreversible. Primary custody is awarded to Mr. Caldwell. Amelia didn't react immediately, not because she didn't understand, but because some words take time to destroy you. The court finds that the petitioner engaged in deception regarding paternity, misused marital assets, and demonstrated a pattern of manipulating public perception for personal gain. Each phrase landed like a precise incision. Visitation will be granted under supervision pending further evaluation. That was when Amelia blinked. Once. Twice. Supervised. Not mother. Not trusted. Managed. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Across the room, Ethan remained still. No satisfaction. No visible relief. Just stillness, because this was never about winning loudly. It was about ending something correctly. Outside the courthouse in San Francisco, the air felt different. Colder. Sharper. News had already begun circulating. Not speculation anymore. Confirmed facts. Headlines shifted within hours. From influencer abandoned after birth, to paternity fraud and deception exposed in high-profile divorce. The same platforms that had lifted Amelia now dissected her. Follower count dropping. Sponsorships paused, then terminated. One email stood out among the dozens she received that afternoon. Due to recent developments, we are terminating our partnership effective immediately. Another. Your actions do not align with our brand values. And another. And another, each one stripping away a piece of the life she had built, until there was nothing left but silence. Lucas didn't call, didn't text, didn't appear, but he did send one final message. I told you this would catch up to you. No apology, no accountability, just distance. Amelia stared at the screen for a long time. Then slowly, she blocked him. Not out of strength, but because there was nothing left to hold on to. The penthouse felt different now. Too large, too empty. Echoes replaced laughter. Absence replaced performance. Amelia stood in the living room where she had once filmed her life in perfect angles. The tripod still stood in the corner, the lighting still soft, but the illusion was gone. She picked up her phone, opened the camera. For a moment, instinct took over. She adjusted her hair, tilted her face toward the light, then stopped, because there was no version of this she could sell anymore. No narrative left to shape, only truth. And truth wasn't beautiful. Across the city, Ethan stood in a smaller space. Simpler, quieter. The nursery he had set up was modest, functional, real. The baby, not his by blood, but now legally under his protection, slept peacefully in the crib. Ethan watched her for a long time, not searching anymore, not questioning, just accepting, because somewhere along the way, something had shifted. This child had never betrayed him. She had only been born into someone else's lies, and Ethan, despite everything, chose not to let those lies define her future. Daniel leaned against the doorway. "You did the right thing," he said. Ethan didn't respond immediately. "Did I?" he asked quietly. Daniel nodded. "You didn't just win the case. You controlled it. There's a difference." Ethan exhaled slowly. "I didn't do it for the case." He looked back at the child. "I did it because I refused to live inside someone else's version of the truth." Weeks passed. Amelia became a name people used as a cautionary example. Not loudly, but consistently. Invitations stopped. Calls went unanswered. And the silence she had once weaponized now consumed her. One evening, she sat alone in the dim light of her apartment. No camera, no audience. Just her and the weight of everything she had lost. Her career, her image, her control, and, most painfully, her place in her own child's life. Tears came again, but no one saw them this time. No likes, no comments, no sympathy. Just consequence. Across town, Ethan locked his office late one night. The city lights reflected in the glass, the same as always. But he wasn't the same. He had lost something too. Trust. Innocence. A version of love he would never get back. But in its place, he had gained something stronger. Clarity. He walked out into the night, the cold air grounding him. No cameras followed, no voices called out. And that felt like freedom. As he reached his car, his phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. He stared at it for a moment, then opened it. Amelia. "I'm sorry." 2 words. Late, small, insufficient. Ethan read it once, then locked his phone. No reply. Because some apologies didn't deserve an answer. The city continued to move. Unchanged. Indifferent. But somewhere within it, 2 lives had been permanently rewritten. One collapsed under the weight of deception. The other rebuilt itself from truth. And in the end, that was the only thing that mattered. Not who told the better story, but who had the courage to face the real one.